Hello and welcome back to the Brew Bowl. It's time for another weekly summary. Now we're at the end of round 3, which is of course the star player round. So let's go over to the leaderboards. So first off, no change for the top 3. So the Lauren Forest Drakes and Slum City Blight are still both in equal first place. Both teams got a draw this round, putting them on equal 7 points. Obviously the draw didn't change their goal difference. So overall they're sitting in a comfortable first place with the Sprayville Butchers on the same competition points, but a lower difference in terms of scoring. From that point onwards, it was pretty much all movement. Big movements up have been from the Ironhold Hammerers, the Kids Left Outcasts, and the Slow Thicket Panthers, who all moved up 4 spots during the week. And then big movers down have been the Icehorn PKRs, who went down by 5, and the Fungus Bay Fanatics went down by 4. And the Northern Marauders are still sitting at the bottom of the table without a win just yet. Let's look at the teams now. So first off, the Ascalon Gladiators, Fohammer's team, had a great game against the Fanatics, 2-0 win. They picked up diving tackle on the new Blitzer. And on top of that, Fohammer also spent 80k to pick up an Apothecary. And that was actually quite an important spend because it did actually change the Swiss draw for round 4 as well. So they'll be facing the Butchers in round 4 now. Or you'll see the standings at the end anyway. But yeah, definitely a good game there for Fohammer. The Axolotl Coattles, which is Pondo's team, also had a decent game. Picked up Dauntless on the blocker, so now all the blockers have 1 skill. Also picked up an Apothecary, so a decent jump there in team value. The Fungus Bay Fanatics had a terrible game. So not only did their player Grisk get a miss next game, they didn't score. They got lots and lots of really stupids for the trolls. They rolled a random secondary and got the same player again. So Trark now has 3 bonus skills, meaning there's a 50-50 chance every game from now on he will leave the team permanently, being drafted. So they've saved their money on the basis they will probably have to buy at least 1 more Goblin in the near future. The Glumhoff Guardians, interesting game for them. Picked up Fumblerookski on a thrower. Not a great skill. I don't know why that's really a passing skill, but there you have it. Also used money to pick up an extra lineman, so they now finally have a bench as well. And the fan factor, the dedicated fans they gained, they actually lost because of their loss. The Hagenet Executioners actually finally got a win, although they did so at the cost of taking a miss next game on one of their linemen. And their Witch Elf picked up Sidestep as well, so good skill for that player to pick up with both Dodge and Sidestep. The Icehorn PKRs took a miss next game for one of their linemen. Also picked up Sidestep on one of their Valkyries, so another good skill there, although without Dodge at the moment. And also had enough money to buy an Apothecary, so a big jump there in team value for the Jarls. The Ironhold Hammerers had another great game, although they finally lost a player to the draft, JJ Watson leaving the team, although he was replaced by his brother TJ Watson, who will come into the next game with Pro already, thanks to a good management role from Big Spoon. They also picked up Stand Firm on Michael Strainson. And they've also now hit 6 dedicated fans, which is the highest one in the league. The Kids of Outcasts, which is Lawson's team, beat the Knights. So picking up on the ball on their Dark Elf. Otherwise, no major change to the team for the next round. The Lackberg Knights took a loss, unfortunately. Had 3 deaths, but 2 of them got walked off thanks to regeneration. So only a lineman dead in the end, but unfortunately a lineman that had a skill being Dodge. Really quite good for a lineman too, so that's a loss. But Mike did have enough money left over to buy a new lineman and also an extra vampire. Lauren Forest Drakes had a shocker of a game against the Butchers. They drew the game, having led early 1-0. They got scored against in the very final turn of the game. But on top of that, they had 2 linemen killed, including one with Sidestep, so a big loss there. Had enough money to buy a new lineman, but still needing journeyman for the next game thanks to not being near 7 full players. Norska Marauders had a rough game. Once again, no scores, no casualties. Lost one of their players, Nod, to the draft, but had got another player literally get the exact same exact same mutation. Omar decided not to spend his money on buying a replacement lineman, instead to save it to basically buy an extra blocker going into the end of the next round. So should be a good opportunity there to get some more strength into that team. Scrayvold Butchers had a great game for what they are. A lot of casualties. Still a draw, but picked up Juggernaut on Thornhall Ironcast, and are otherwise saving their money for what they need in the future. The Slow Thicket Pantry Raiders, first off, got a brand new treatment finally, got money for that, and also picked up Block as a random secondary skill on a lineman. So that character's got Block and Dodge. So a great opportunity there for the Raiders to use that player as a real linchpin player going forward. The Slum City Blight, high scoring game, but still a draw against the Enslavers. Picked up Sidestep on their throwers, pretty good there. Also used some money to buy a cheerleader just to get themselves below the 100k cap for the purposes of expensive mistakes. Telebeckland Griffins took a random skill on a random player, got Dirty Player on Ergo the Ogre, I think making him the most expensive player in the game right now. Also had cash left over to buy an Apothecary as well. So big jump in team value. And finally, the Warpstone Enslavers with their 3-3 draw against the Blight took a random skill alignment, got another player with Dirty Player. Given that AP doesn't like to actually foul, he's got two players with superfluous skill there. So, but 90k treasury, so should be able to handle whatever the game will throw at him in the next round, even if he loses players. Looking at the player leaderboards, once again, these are the leaderboards for the entire Brew Bowl multiple series. If you want to see just leaderboards for this series, go to Tour Play, check out the honors page there. But in terms of the best passes, the real change here was that Triple H, or as AP calls him, jumped up onto the bottom of the passes tree. Higher scorers, no changes there, except I think Moss Burner has moved up now with some extra scoring. Most deadly, Rain Lewison got some more, but still Fazieth, who is now dead himself, still sitting in second place, and also some gains there from the Gravemaker and Ergo. Most valuable player, well, Trark jumped up there now, having gotten 3 times most valuable player. No other major changes there. And as I mentioned before, Ergo is the most expensive player now. It's all big guys there. If you look at Tour Play, you can see most expensive by big guy, by standard player, and by stunty player as well. Let's look at the round 4 draw, and for this I can also talk about the scores that's been allocated to those teams via Tour Play. So looking first off at the Blight versus the Drake, so the two equal first teams competing. The Blight has got a current score on Tour Play of 9.7 versus the Drake sitting on an 8. So Tour Play would seem to favour the Blight there. Butchers versus Gladiators. So Foam are going in there to play against the Butchers. The Butchers are sitting on 13.3, I believe the highest score. Yep, the highest score for them. Up against the Gladiators, which are 8.6. So big difference. But a lot of what the Butchers get score for is dirty plays. So dirty plays can go either way. They could potentially result in some removals of your own players. We'll have to see how they go. But once again, the Gladiators have relatively low armor, so they could suffer at the hands of the Khorne team. Then we've got Coattles versus Hammerers, our only PvP game next round. So the Coattles are sitting on a score of 9.3 versus the Hammerers on a score of 12.2. I think really that we saw that Pondo struggle with block as a skill in the last game. And on top of that, the Dwarves with tackle are going to really slow down the Skinks with dodge. So I really favour the Hammerers in that game. I think that it's going to be a really good game, but I think that Spoon's going to have it at the end. But we'll see. I could be wrong. Then the Warpstone Enslavers taking on the Icehorn Peak Jarls. So the Enslavers are on a score of 10.1. The Jarls on a score of 7.6. Quite low for the Jarls, that score. I don't know if it's really indicative of the strength of the team, but what I will say is the Enslavers are definitely a strong team. So I think that the speed of the Enslavers and the inability, or the not inability, but the reduced opportunity for the Norse linemen to sprint I think I'll have to give that game to the Enslavers, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, moving on to the second part of round 4. We've got the Slow Thicket Pantry Raiders going up against the Kislev Outcasts. So the Pantry Raiders are sitting on a score of 7.6. The Outcasts on a score of 10.7. I think that Lawson will have the answers for the questions asked by the Raiders, so I think that will really favour the Outcasts in that match. Fanatics versus Executioners. The Fanatics sitting on 8.8. Executioners sitting on 7.3. This game won't be shown. This will be an NPC summary game, but we'll see whether or not the Fanatics cavalcade of secret weapon players can do some damage against the Executioners, or if the Executioners can really try and copy what the Wood Elves have been doing. Then we've got the Leichberg Knights versus the Glenelg Guardians. Knights sitting on a score of 5.9 versus the Guardians sitting on a score of 6.6. So both relatively low scores. I think 5.9 is actually the lowest score for a team in the Brew Bowl right now. But we'll see how they do. I think Mike's feeling pretty confident against the Guardians since they've really struggled to get injuries off against teams. And then finally, the Marauders versus the Talabaclan Griffins. So the Northcote Marauders sitting on a score of 6. The Griffins sitting on a score of 7.7. I think that luck just needs to go the Marauders' way at some point. So I really hope that Omar can get a win against the Griffins this week. Otherwise, he's going to be really struggling to have any chance of getting in the playoffs with 4 weeks on 0 points. But time will tell. So that is the end of the weekly summary. As I mentioned on an earlier video, I will be away traveling for about a week, so it might be a little while before you see some more episodes. But rest assured, there is more Brew Bowl coming. We are almost halfway through the rounds. We're end of round 4, we'll be halfway through, but there's still plenty more action to come. So keep watching, and we hope you enjoy the show. Don't forget Arthur's Discord, AP Gaming Real, where you can chat with all the players and myself as well about the game. Anyway, take care, and we look forward to seeing you next time.